So often, vanity metrics are what people care about. How many followers? Does it matter if you have 5 likes? You really should be measuring engagement. A lot of places use it as a dumping ground. It's like, hey, well, we need to sell this, slap it on social, or this department needs this thing, announce it on social. That's not a strategy. I would avoid clickbait like as much as possible because I do think the algorithms of these different platforms are catching on. They want this super authentic content.
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Welcome to the Between Pixels podcast, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing. My name's Josh, and today I am joined by none other than Katie Gillen.
Hello.
So this begs a question, Katie. Why are you here today?
So I'm here today to talk a little about social media, which is something that I talk about with you guys all the time in the office.
This is true. You will never stop talking about social media. It's always social media, social media. Just kidding. So you are our director of marketing services. And so I wanted to bring you in to talk a little bit about social because, you know, social media is one of those things that has been important for a long time, but it seems like now the content on social and the use of content has just grown immensely. Everyone's got content out there. We can all shoot it on our phones, right? So it'd be good for us to talk a little bit about the right social strategies, the types of content, because otherwise it's just like it's a huge mess if you don't consider all those things, right? So I wanted you to kind of explain your background a little bit because you have a good bit of experience in social content and marketing. So tell us a little bit about what you did before Between Pixels and how your journey into social media marketing and content happened.
Yeah. So My journey is a little bit weird because I started out very much in TV at ESPN doing linear television. ESPN didn't have streaming, not to date myself. And I just noticed at the time, a lot of people were cord cutting. I felt like my future in TV wasn't stable. And I felt the need to reinvent myself. So I heard about this thing called Facebook and social media. And I started doing all these like online courses, these free things that I could do to teach myself. And then I was able to parlay my TV skills into social media. And from there, I got a job working under Arthur and Blank family businesses. So Falcons, United, PGA Tour Superstores, completely pivoted into digital and social. And from there, I've just been in social ever since. So as new platforms come out, I get on the platform so I don't age out of my job. So TikTok, I'm on there. Every time there's something new, I get on there and continue to try and learn and evolve as the platforms change.
So that's awesome. So you kind of glossed over something that's probably interesting for people that live in Atlanta. So what was that organization?
Atlanta United with Arthur and Blank Sports and Entertainment.
Atlanta United. What did you do for Atlanta United and when was that? Just for people that might be interested in a time period in which Atlanta United was very interesting for us.
It was a great time. So I was very fortunate. I got to be there from the start, the very first match through MLS Cup. So I did get a championship ring, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But the main reason I went and started with Atlanta United was because it was a rare opportunity to be involved with a sports team before it had anything established, like no social strategy, no branding, no colors. Like you can't go to the Yankees and change stuff, at least like change stuff on that kind of scale.
Yeah.
So we built everything from scratch. We're the first team to 1 million followers on Twitter, now X, launched TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you name it.
That's awesome. So yeah, I think for people that are in Atlanta, as we are, they would probably find that pretty interesting. So because it was amazing, honestly, just like seeing Atlanta United do what we hoped they would do in that first year. I mean, it really attracted a lot of people to soccer, and it was like or football if you're on the other side of the pond.
Yes.
But yeah, that was amazing. So let's just talk a little bit about social content. So before we get into, I don't know, all of the details, just could you talk a little bit about how you've seen social changing and say maybe from when you first started getting into it to where it is today?
Yes, it's changed a lot. It changes every day. I feel like I'm constantly looking at like what the algorithms are doing and where things are going so we can stay ahead of things. But the biggest change has been the content on the platforms, I think. So one, new platforms that are very video centric. And two, just the rise of vertical video. Before it was like, you can get away with 16:9, you can get away with a square size.
Yep.
Now you want maximum real estate, full vertical 9:16. You want stuff that's cut for social, not just a cut down of something you already did and were using for email or your website. And I think it's only going to continue to change. We're getting very much into this micro, hyper consumable content. And then just new platforms every time. We have some kind of new thing coming out, and it might work, it might not. Like we have Threads. I don't know if Threads will stay. TikTok. Until it gets removed, I don't know.
Well, I was going to ask, like, do you think TikTok is responsible for that vertical kind of progression? Because like on Instagram, it was like you could, and then they kind of like, it's like stories, and then it's like, you know, there was an evolution of how things rolled out. And I mean, I was on TikTok when it was Musical.ly.
One of the OGs in on the ground level.
We didn't know how to use it. We all were just like, what is this? And so you just like make little like stop motion videos of yourself doing something, or like create like little lip sync music videos with like our kids.
That's
like,
what
that
I
was
think
like
about.
the whole thing. Yeah, it was really dumb, but
But
so
here we are.
here we are today. But yeah, like I guess from that standpoint, what do you so what does it take then, if that's where we're at? What does it take to create engaging content, in your opinion?
I think it takes being very intentional, storytelling. Like we're still storytelling. Like everyone, I feel like, got so weirded out when we moved from 16:9 to this 9:16. Like it's not cinematic anymore. Like it's not the video that we signed up for. You now just have to be really
Make
good.
social media.
I know, it's so
horizontally.
bad. You just have to be more strategic doing it, intentionality with the 9:16, but you're still doing really great storytelling. You're still like doing insane motion design and all that sort of stuff. It's just not what we learned on.
Yeah.
It's not what we're used to.
Yeah.
And I still think it's terrible. I personally do not like when people say rotate your phone.
Oh yeah.
I just give it to me that I can just keep scrolling.
That's true. Well, so I mean, like, one of the things that I guess I've noticed is that sometimes things that are too overproduced don't feel as, I mean, they don't feel as authentic because they're overproduced. But do you think that it's important, or what aspect does that play into it? Just like shooting things that are like homemade looking, like people shooting on their phone, shooting more like casual behind the scenes stuff. Like, how does that play in? What's the right mix for a brand for something like that? And then is that a trend that will change, or, you know, what are your thoughts on it?
So I think you can still shoot high end. Like you could still shoot on nice cameras and not just your phone, but it's the stylistic thing. That's like a hard distinction, because I feel like a lot of people and brands are scared to do lo-fi content or things that are more social friendly. It's a lot about the style of the content, the use of trends. Maybe it's a little more raw and gritty. Maybe there's jump cuts. Like that's not a bad thing in social media. The traditional video editing that you might normally do is not the same. But I do think there is something about the lo-fi shooting on your phone, even though these phones are so good in shooting 4K, so it's really not an issue. But it comes off very authentic. And I think that's why brands have done really well on TikTok when they're super authentic. It feels like a friend. It doesn't feel like this big, scary brand that's just trying to sell to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so how do you think then, with that in mind, strategies would differ across platforms? Like how is content different, say TikTok? Well, we know there's like length of content, but is there an actual strategy behind the different?
Absolutely. Okay. So one, I definitely recommend not just slapping the same piece of content on every platform with the same copy on the same day, in the same hour, in the same minute. If people love your brand, they're going to probably follow you on every platform. So can you give them a different experience? Or for your followers that are different age demographics on different platforms, can you cater to them? So I think really mapping out, you can do content in the same vein, but maybe the edit is different for Facebook than versus what you're putting on TikTok. Even little things like having links. You're not going to put a link in your caption on Instagram or TikTok, but on Facebook and LinkedIn, you can hyperlink and you don't have to worry about that. The other platforms, you might say visit my bio, or like you can have things set up that they can click your post and get to a link. I think even the copy being intentional with like how long it is or short it is per platform is key. Those like subtle tweaks are key to having like a successful strategy across all the platforms.
And how does YouTube play into this? Because like YouTube's like there's like the social media platforms, and then YouTube's just like sitting there. It's like long form content mostly, but it has shorts, and which are very similar. And I feel like the algorithms and the keywords on the YouTube algorithm, and then the keywords and the titles and the descriptions and the thumbnails, all of that. I mean, the thumbnails on YouTube are completely unhinged at this point.
It's gotten wild, but it's weird.
It's like, if you're not doing this.
Can we screenshot this right now for this video?
So what are your thoughts on that? Because we do a good bit of content on YouTube. We have our own stuff on there. We do some stuff for other clients, but it seems like to me that sometimes the engagement, especially on shorts, if you don't have an entire strategy around shorts on YouTube, so it's just comparing it to other social media channels, then you don't really get any traction. Whereas like I've had stuff on Instagram, it's just you post, and if it's interesting, then all of a sudden you'll get like 10,000 views. And you're like, why did that one get 10,000? Well, it's because of the content. But on YouTube, it's not as much the case. There's like a audience curation that like has to happen over time. And I don't know, but how do you even include that kind of in the strategy?
Yes. So I would. I know it's weird. Some people think like YouTube's on its island.
Yeah.
I consider it part of the social platform universe.
Yeah.
I would say that it's harder to have like that virality on YouTube, because I think consistency is like the most important on that platform than any other. Like you could theoretically post one TikTok and have it go viral and have like no other things on your page.
Yeah.
YouTube, I feel like, is not going to give you that audience recognition or that credibility until you're consistently on there. Like you're posting shorts every week, maybe every day, and the long form content, and then customizing those thumbnails.
Yeah.
There's so much more that goes into it. I feel like you really should have your own strategy per platform.
Yeah. That's a lot. I mean, so it's a lot for people to consider to do themselves,
Yes.
you know, which is, you know, one of the reasons why we like to try to help with it, not to do a selfless plug here, but like what, you know, I guess knowing that that's difficult, what are some recommendations you would make for like managing social media marketing? So those are some of the things that we do for our clients now, but what ways do we help solve that? Because it is, you know, if a strategy is needed for every piece of content that's different on different channels, how do we handle it?
Yeah.
You know,
I would say starting with an audit. I think a lot of people might think their social is where it needs to be, or they've plateaued. We could come in, or, you know, yourself can come in and diagnose, why is stuff not working? Like, is there a consistent brand message? Like, what is the messaging? What are the goals? Who is the audience? Sometimes we just put stuff on social, and this is terrible. A lot of places use it as a dumping ground. It's like, hey, well, we need to sell this, slap it on social, or this department needs this thing, announce it on social. That's not a strategy. And there's so much more that goes into it. I think starting there, auditing how things look, making sure the strategy's mapped out, then going into planning a content calendar, because consistency is really key on social. Like you can't just throw stuff out there and be like, great, we did a post and it was kind of cool and hopefully people like it.
Yeah.
Posting consistently. And then from there, like tons of analytics. What I didn't touch on earlier with Atlanta United is my role was half analytics, literally living in social to the point where I could figure out if I'm facing the camera, it's going to do so much better than my side profile, or like a player side profile versus facing the camera. You can get so granular and use those little tweaks to keep making your social improve.
Well, this is a good transition to key metrics. So like, what do you think we should be tracking? What should we pay attention to?
This is great, because so often vanity metrics are what people care about. How many followers? You have 1 million followers. Does it matter if you have 5 likes on the post? But for some companies, the C-suite will direct, hey, I want to see 1 million followers, or I want to see us get to this benchmark. You really should be measuring engagement. Like engagement to me trumps everything. I think looking at stuff like website traffic, conversions, that stuff where you can really quantify. Granted, it's super hard to track social because people can hop on and then go to 17 other places before they purchase. But having that stuff set up so it's not just like, hey, 1 million followers. Like, does it matter if one person liked it, but you have 500,000 bots?
Yeah. No, that's good. So engagement. So just how many is like length of views?
It could be like likes, comments, shares,
comments, all of it.
reposting, views I usually will break out and track differently.
Yeah.
And then by platform, it could depend like what is the view count as? Is it 1 second? Is
Yeah.
it 3 seconds? Is it like an entirety? So there's
So-
all the nuances of the platforms.
I'll tell you, there's a thing that I've noticed. I noticed on YouTube, but I noticed on other social media too that I follow, that a lot of the activity is happening in the comments. So there's like, for one, people post stuff and it's something that's completely stupid. And it's usually like people like hate comment on it or they hate watch it. And this is like a whole genre.
This is a thing.
And it's so like there's like cooking channels where people cook the dumbest stuff. And
I was
people,
literally thinking about that. The toilet cooking. I'm like, why?
I haven't seen that one.
I'm angry.
But people they all kinds of stuff. Like, and they you go to the comments and that's where the activity is. It's not even the post. It's like the post is so stupid that all this activity, the comments is like a stand-up comedy
Yes.
deal going on, showcase. And you're just like, everyone's like here for the comments,
I
it's
do
like
that.
thousands of comments. I'm like, this is so funny. So I guess one of the things this is a tension that I notice in content that either we post or post for other clients, that sometimes when you're trying the goal, if the goal is engagement, sometimes the content that we post, there's like this balance between it being too, what's the right word? Like, I don't want to say controversial, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like something that's clickbait in
Yeah.
a way that then people will react to. Like, obviously for certain brands, you just can't do that, but certain things just do get more engagement. Like boring posts don't get engagement. So like,
Sadly.
what do you do? Yeah. So like, what's the balance of that? I mean, obviously for a brand, you can't be out here just like saying like the most extreme things in order to get people to like comment on your post. But as it is for like influencers or people, creating their own channel, it's very different. But what's your thoughts on that? Like I guess to put it into a question, like what's the balance of protecting the brand versus creating engagement?
I think you have to still follow brand guidelines because it's so easy to get in hot water for doing something that makes the brand look bad, infuriates your customer base. Like that's the last thing you want to do. But at the same time, you have to test. I feel like social is such a testing ground. So trying something that's a little out of the box, like you don't go all the way over here, but like, all right, we're going to try this and just see like what people think. A lot of A/B testing. I love to A/B test and like see how the analytics track up. I would avoid clickbait like as much as possible because I do think the algorithms of these different platforms are catching on. Like I was reading something about Instagram and they're like, if you're putting too direct of a CTA, we're going to like lower how many people are seeing your post. So they're catching on. They want this super authentic content. And I would say too, comedy is such a great thing, but it's probably the hardest thing to do well on social. So like if you're a brand, you have to really know your lane and like your niche and have someone who's great at comedic writing because these aren't just videos you can go shoot. Like someone has to script write it. Even if it comes off the cuff, someone produced that little 30-second video that was really funny. Yeah.
I do notice like whenever I get ads, usually on Instagram, if they're funny, I'll watch them. And then I might be like, oh, that's actually really good.
Should I buy that?
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's like, because it's mostly for entertainment. I mean, I don't really use Instagram for seeing what my friends are doing like it used to be. It used to be like, oh, look, they just went on a trip and that was cool. I'm like, show me comedy. I'm like, show me stand up.
And go.
Yeah, show me memes I can send my wife. Look at that. It's just like purely entertainment. But if the ad fits into that feed in that way, and I'm like, oh, that was really entertaining, and it was actually for a product, then I might very often buy stuff off of Instagram.
I think I'm a TikTok buyer.
You are? Okay. I'm not that big of a TikTok user because I don't have, if I have to go between all those platforms, I just like have to go over there for a certain, I'm like, let me go check out what's over here if I'm not getting what I want on Instagram. But I feel like the algorithm on Instagram has pretty much figured me out to the point that it knows exactly what I want every day.
That's how my TikTok
is. Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's great. So you kind of mentioned this, you were saying like, you want to be careful, what you post and protect the brand. So which kind of leads to this question about like dealing with brand crises on social media. So how should those be handled? Do you have kind of guidelines for that?
I feel like this is everyone's biggest fear, because if you do the wrong thing on social, it's everywhere and it's never going down. Even if you delete it, it's there forever, theoretically. So I think having clear guidelines in place, like, what is your brand stance on certain issues? Mm-hmm. What is your brand going to do if XYZ happen? Like having a customer service type FAQ guide, whether it's just replying to a single person's comment on Instagram, or we posted this thing and oh no, everyone's like coming at us with pitchforks and we got to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think the best thing brands can do if they do something like that, and a huge faux pas, and it's something where people are really upset, is to immediately acknowledge, apologize, and how are we doing better? So truly like a PR stance, working directly with your comms team, if you have a comms team or a PR agency, to craft that right message. Because I feel like so often we see with celebrities, they get tanked on social, something happened, and then they do this kind of message like, I'm sorry, like, if you think I did something wrong. And it's like, what? This isn't, it's like a little kid doing an apology that's not a real apology.
Yeah.
And it's so much better to just take the L. Just own it, swallow the frog, whatever you need to do to be like, we did this and that was bad. And here's how we're going to do better.
Yeah. Well, this kind of, so that's good for handling crises. Are there just general best practices that you would say for a brand, like, that's your go-to, or do they need to, I'm sure everyone needs to consider their own set of best practices, but do you have some that you would say?
I think being very authentic, like number one, if you like took nothing else away from our conversation today, being authentic, even as a brand, like, yes, Microsoft is like this huge thing, or Apple, but like there has to be some kind of authentic personality behind it that, like, oh, I'm engaging with Apple, like this tracks, this makes sense. Or a brand like Southwest, where they always engage with you or reply to people immediately. That little stuff is like the differentiator between great social media and good or okay social media.
Yeah.
Those are like my top probably for best practices, without me getting super granular and getting like into social guidelines of like having set emojis that you usually use, or common kind of phrases or ways you would engage with people who ask the same question.
Yeah.
Sizes, all that kind of stuff. Like you can get super granular. Our BP social guide is that granular. Like emojis we enjoy using or want to use, hashtags we want to use, just so we're always consistent.
Yeah, no, that's good. Do you think, how important is it? I mean, you kind of touched on this before, but almost like the personality of the brand per channel, is that important? Because I notice so I guess we follow, I can't remember who it is. It's an airline, and my wife and I both follow, and they just have funny, like, all their stuff is hilarious.
Is it the one with like the plane has like a face or like a mouth in it?
Yeah, it's something. It's like, yeah, it's ridiculous. But the reason why it's because it's almost like they troll the people.
Is Ryanair?
I think it's Ryanair. Yeah, it's Ryanair, and they just troll people, and it's funny.
It's really good.
Like, but that's that's kind of like what I was saying about clickbait. It's like, that's a risky move for your brand. But if you're gonna do it, you got to go all in on that on social, so people know, like, oh, they're like just being funny, but then you got to commit to that, and that your channel is that personality, and then that's where that channel lives. So like, how important is that for other channels, or do you ever recommend? What are your recommendations? If
it fits your brand to be out there and to like poke fun, and you have social managers in place who can do that on the day-to-day. Like, you don't want to have a board meeting to figure out how we're going to reply to this one fan or this other brand every day, because the problem with social is it's all real time. Like, you got to be 6 a.m, something can happen, 7 o'clock at night. Like, how are we hopping on something in real time? We're not missing it too late. The brands that do that usually do it well. It's bad if you don't execute it well. And then I would say the safest thing is to not do that kind of personality.
Yeah.
But you can have huge returns. Like, look at Duolingo. That has been an account that's blown up and a lot of times praised in the social community for how well they run it. The stuff is so out there. It's wild, but they that social team probably has free reign to kind of do whatever they want, and it works for them. So if it works for your brand and you have the people with the kind of comedic chops to do it, then roll with it.
That's tough. Do you have favorite brands or channels and things that you...
Well, I'd start first with like platforms.
Yeah, okay.
For me, my favorite platform right now is TikTok. Probably because my algorithm is so ridiculously like fine-tuned to me. It's like marketing, cooking, travel, hiking, sports, books that I'm reading. I'm like, how do you know what books I read?
Ice skating.
Like maybe my figure skating. Like it's all in there. I'm like, how did you people like have you hacked my Goodreads because you know the exact book I'm reading right now? And like I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
But that, and then also too like the potential for virality, I just think is so fun. You can see these people who their lives have completely changed because they're actually really funny and they started recording themselves, and now everyone else in the world is like, dang, they're pretty funny. Like it changes people's lives. So platform-wise that. And then in terms of accounts, a lot of my inspo always goes back to sports because I'm very much a sports girly, as you guys know. But like the Chargers on social media, I think do such a good job.
What do they do well?
The content, like the quality, the ability to hop on trends, like even if it's a trend that you wouldn't think might fit with a football team, they do it. Like candy salad was something that was trending on social where everyone like comes and they're like, I brought the Starburst today and I brought Skittles, and like everyone just dumps their candy into a big like Tupperware. Yeah. They did it with the rookies on the team, and it was really fun because you got to see everyone's personality, and you wouldn't normally think candy salad and NFL, does that work? But it does for them.
That's cool. I guess the Braves do kind of that thing where they ask them a question on their way in. They're like, oh yeah, whatever. You know, it's like this or that. It's kind of
like, why are you making me do this?
Yeah. But it's not trending, but you know, it'd be funny if they did. Okay. So that kind of leads me to think about trends. So like, do you have any trends or like styles or videos or whatever that you've seen that you're like, we want to try that out. That's cool. Like that's going somewhere.
I feel like I talk about this a lot at work, but I want pure mayhem. Like I want, that sounds ridiculous, video. And then if I'm talking about SpongeBob, I want a little SpongeBob like graphic to pop up and a sound effect and B-roll of what I'm mentioning and like constant dynamic cuts. I do think quick cuts and edits work really well on social, and you have to get someone engaged because a lot of times, like if I'm a consumer, I have Netflix or Hulu or something on and I'm second screening. So like what's going to pull me from my program back to my phone that I'm like, whoa, I can't even watch this show. Like I need to be dialed into my phone.
Oh, second screening.
It's bad. I know.
It drives me crazy because like I was sit on the couch and I'm like, we're trying to watch a show. And I'm like, I think we like this show, don't we? And like, we'll both, my wife and I'll both be on our phone, like looking at something.
I have some shows I won't second screen though. The Boys right now, I'm like dialed in.
But I'll have to ask after. I was like, do we like this show? Because like we were both like on our phone the whole time. This show's on. No, it's a good show. I'm like, I don't think it's that good.
It's weird. Like sometimes I will like a show, but it doesn't require as much of my brain power. This probably sounds insane. It doesn't require all my brain power. So I'm like, oh, well, I can have like half my brain is watching this show and half of it is like scrolling social.
I can listen and then use my eyes to do other stuff. So I actually, I've definitely listened to a book and read stuff at the same time.
It's like, are we absorbing it? I don't know.
And it's two different things. So like, that's interesting. So just, we all know, I mean, it's like you watch stuff on social and it's like, it's just boom, 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 lots of high energy. Kind of touched on this before, but how does, you know, video people, obviously you were a video person before you were a marketing person. I'm still technically a video person, but you know, there's this tendency to like lean on those video, trends and the things we learn and our best practices from there, which don't always apply to social. And it's almost like, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I guess just like the jump cuts, for example, like you see this, I see it on YouTube all the time. I see it on Instagram. There's not a second with a gap. So, and it doesn't matter. Like in video, you're taught, no, that's a jump cut. You don't want to see that unless it's intentional and you're like using it for like a stylistic thing. But most of the time, it's like you would never in an interview be like jump cut, jump cut, jump cut, jump cut. I see stuff where I'm on social all the time. there's no need to edit it. You know, they probably didn't mess up, but they just pop in slightly, and it's just this. It's almost like the rhythm, and it just keeps going. It's just the cadence of the edit. So like, what do video people need to do? How do you need to embrace the change? Because I think a lot of times there's this gap between like filmmaking, cinematic, like people who went to film school, but yet the future is like in this faster social, content. What's your advice to those folks?
I think embracing how creative they can be. Like you have constraints now with vertical, like that you don't have all the time in the world. You don't have, I mean, TikTok, technically you could do 60 minutes, which is wild, but you don't have all the time in the world. Like you have 90 to 60 seconds, a lot of times, maybe even shorter. Sometimes I'm making reels for myself. They're 17 seconds, they're 15 seconds. And I'm like, well, that had multiple shots in it and caption on screen and music. And like suddenly it's this whole little piece that like works. So I feel like embracing the challenge, the constraints, I think finding creative ways to shoot where like continuity doesn't necessarily matter. Jump cuts don't necessarily matter anymore. So like, how can you use that to your advantage with film and do things that you're like, we're told not to do, but now you can do them? Can you use them very creatively? Like, there are different techniques like speed ramps and different stuff to make it look very visually interesting and still more like the older way of doing video to make yourself feel better. But it's tough. I think it's like, understand you can still be creative and do high quality in social and not throwing away your identity like, oh, it's for social, like, it doesn't matter. Like, no, it does. It might see it. 1 million people might see it. Which is pretty good.
No, that's true. I was going to say, I think one thing that might be helpful too is just to consider it like another genre. Because it's like you have ads, you have, short films, you have all these things like corporate videos and voiceover, motion design. Even like reality TV to me is so different than every other thing because it's almost like social media in a way that it has to get people's attention in the way that they do it. And there's a cliffhanger before every commercial that's unnecessary. Oh no, and it's like, oh, sorry, it was just a mistake. I didn't realize that, it is so dumb. It's like you can just see it coming. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly
it's just complete nonsense. I was actually we were on a reality show pilot, my family in 2013,
I did not know this.
2014. They were creating, some friends of mine that used to work at A&E. They were creating a reality show pilot with interior designers, and they're like, we need a house. And they're like, well, you just bought this house that looks like the set of Family Matters from like 1980, whatever. So they're like, can we renovate your living room? I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Please.
Yeah, it cost us, we had to pay like $5,000, I think, but I got like a $25,000 renovation for like $5,000.
That's amazing.
And so it was really interesting to be on the other side of that production and just see like all of the fake like stuff that they wanted us to do.
It's so bad.
The director would be like, okay, we want you to come in with your family and they will have just taken the mantle off and we want you to be shocked.
Yes.
We walk in, we're like, oh wow, and
what are
it's
you
like,
doing to my home?
So we can go to the commercial. So for me, I'm like, it's just like a whole different world. And the people that do that stuff, there's producers that produce that stuff and they know what's required to do it. And it's so different than
the editing is so good though.
Yeah, it's so good. And they have to make all those things. And honestly, like social is kind of similar in a lot of ways. It's like you just have to be like, yeah, I'm not doing a feature film. I'm not doing an ad. I'm not doing always. It doesn't always apply. If you're making an ad for social, I think in the ones like I've mentioned before, it's like you can make something interesting, engaging, and funny and cinematic. And sure, it needs to be like punchy.
Yeah, that's the move.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like, if you're going to make socially engaging content, you've got to kind of think of it like it's a whole nother genre, I think, and kind of apply some of those things. And just kind of, put some of that stuff to the side, just get out of your space. We can get a little specific as video editors where we get in a lane and storytellers and don't want to break out of that lane. So, which, kind of leads to how we do some stuff around here. So let's talk a little bit about our social media marketing plan and strategy and the way we do stuff for our clients. Because one of the things we're doing now is kind of shifting things to be more marketing focused rather than being video focused. So kind of talk a little bit about how we would then solve these problems for a client and try to deliver on all the stuff we talked about today.
Yeah. So to start, auditing and like baseline, where are we at? How are things looking? What are priority platforms? What are goals? Because that might change if I say, hey, you need to launch a TikTok, or we can wait on that. Let's put all of our ammo behind Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And then from there, really planning content. It's so much of it is planning. And everyone thinks social is so reactive, which yes, it is. Like you need to be ready to hop on trends. But without a baseline strategy, without a baseline amount of content, you're just going to be constantly spinning your wheels and you're not making traction. Oh, we forgot to post today. We don't have content today. Okay, 2 weeks have gone by. We didn't post anything. Like, what are we doing? Having that baseline foundation is great. So we come in and we ideate and we come up with like, hey, here's like the whole batch of content for the month that we recommend. And then on a weekly basis, we're recommending, hey, did you guys see these 2 trends on TikTok? Like, can you hop on? Can we hop on? Can we film this for you? And supplement what we're already doing. But that allows us to be reactive, but at the same time, like super strategic with everything else and not missing anything. And then seeing how it does, analyzing how the data is, like, was there growth? Was there good engagement?
Yeah.
And then recalibrating. Because if that stuff didn't work or numbers were low, we're not going to run it back with the same strategy or the same content. All right, maybe like this video stuff didn't work as well. We need more captions, more words on screen. We need more quick cuts. We need more of this. We're going to pivot and do more of this kind of stuff. Or do we need some more static content? Do like some static graphics? Like we've talked so much about video because video is really king in my mind on social, but graphics, photos can still do really well depending on how you post them.
Well, and how long does it take to figure out the mix? Because it seems like there's a lot of testing and things that are required. So if someone's going to say, all right, yeah, I'm ready to like go all in on social, because we've, like you mentioned earlier, it's like a lot of times it just becomes a junk drawer and it's like just it's an afterthought. If someone's like, we're going to commit to it and see, how long should a client expect for that recipe to be figured out? Say if we're going to run it for them.
I would say 1 to 3 months, like granted with changes along the way. Like 1 month is not a lot of time.
Yeah.
3 months is not a lot of time. And the platforms are changing all the time. So it's like, I feel like 6 months to a year, you can really see like benchmarks. A lot of times we're measuring like, all right, what was our baseline? What was engagement before?
Yeah.
Where is it at now? You want to have a lot of data points to see how it ebbs and flows, and then take into account like events, like sports. If your team's good, your social's probably going to be good. The real fun is when like things are bad and then your social's so good. And like same with a brand, like, hey, maybe things didn't go as well, or like we're not selling as much. Now is the time to kind of rise to the challenge and like get things looking really good and get great engagement. But I feel like as early as 1 to 3 months, you can start seeing things really come together, really have a clear strategy, and start seeing that kind of return on investment.
Yeah. Well, and then also just how do we internally, how should a team, so say us or maybe another agency, if they're like, they're looking to serve their client better, more efficiently with social content, what's just kind of like the operational system of like, how do you execute? Because it moves so fast. So how do you create content, ideate, deliver, execute, write it all,
all the things,
and do it where it's not insanely expensive?
But I'm pretty quick, as you've seen.
Exactly.
I feel like you do have to be super fast.
I call Katie AI Katie because she just writes as fast as AI.
I'm like so mixed on AI, but I would say first having like a social playbook, because I want anyone to kind of come in and be able to ideate correctly, post, copyright. If you don't have guidelines, you might think something totally off the wall that I'm like, is this our brand? Does this fit with our social persona? So having like a clear playbook that basically like dumbs everything down of here's how we copyright, here's concepts, here's our style. We want to kind of fit within that, but we can still deviate a little bit. And then ideation, I think a lot of times for me, I want to ideate on my own and then be in a group. So I don't want to come into a meeting like, I'm just going to riff. I want to riff off other ideas, my own and others. Or like, here's my half-baked idea. Can someone on our team make it better? And then come to our client with like a fully fleshed out list of things. I'd rather pitch too many ideas than not enough, but quality, like super quality ideas, not just like, here's 500 ideas. 2 of them are good.
Yeah.
But like 20, how about 20 good ideas? And that's it.
And they need to be intentional too, because it's like, and you can just go look at other channels and be like, oh, here's some stuff other people doing. But if it's like totally off brand, then it's,
or you get called out
hard.
now. If you copy brands, that's one thing that's so interesting with the social community. It's like, is there such a thing as original thought? But people will constantly call it, like other social managers or other teams be like, you guys just ripped off like this really cool concept we did and it's doing well for you. Like, whoa, not cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like towing that line of like, don't just copy what everyone else does.
Yeah.
Like find your lane, and maybe it's weird and doesn't do well at first, but then you build this little following and suddenly you have something. Yeah.
No, that's true. So with that in mind, what's the next 5 to 10 years of social look like?
Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So I think it's going to be more video content, like continuing this trend of vertical video, continuing more of this like quick cuts and like everything snappy, everything super engaging, really interesting. But the biggest change I think is moving away from these like huge influencers to micro content creators, because there is a distinction between being a content creator and an influencer.
Yeah.
To me, like an influencer is a celebrity, a persona, a personality. And a content creator is someone who is creating really quality stuff that is providing value. Granted, could someone be both? Yes. But I think that's a key distinction, and we're going to shift the way of the content creator. So if you're really good at video and you're really good at editing, start working on your stuff now. Yeah. Start putting out these little videos, because people are going to find you for the value you bring. Also, people are tired of being sold to so directly. I'm noticing it already on TikTok where people have TikTok shop and they are commenting, I will literally search this product to avoid giving you commission right now. Because they're like, I'm tired of being sold to. Yeah. Versus a teeny tiny nano content creator that's recommending like, hey, here's the lenses I use for my wilderness photography. And they might buy that because wow, it was authentic and they didn't force it on me.
Yeah. I have seen that shift. It's like people want the content. They don't want to buy anything. So it's like you have to rely on the platforms to monetize you.
Yes.
And it's rough. Yeah. It's because it's, I mean, you can, but you have to like really get a big audience and then really have it, your content has to be really good. You can't just have like a campaign. I mean, we do that for a brand, and it's like, I see it over and over again, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of engagement on something. And then it's like no purchases. And it's like, this was really cool. I don't want to buy it. I mean, thanks for letting me watch it for free.
Great video.
Great content. So I love that. That's encouraging for me, because as a content creator, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Right?
Oh yeah, it just has to be good. Okay, so I'm sure that this is going to play into it, and I don't want to back you into a corner here, but what about AI? Because we just talked about content creators, and it does seem like AI is going to make that a lot easier. And then some of that, I have my own thoughts on it, but I just wonder what your thoughts are on it before I share mine.
So I think there are ways to use AI safely or respectively.
Tell me more. Are you a pro or anti?
So I'm more anti. It's weird. It's like, yes, AI is great. It can save time. But I'm anti in the sense of like the nuance, like in scripts, like that personality, the emotion. I don't think AI has gotten there yet. At least for copywriting for me, that's how I feel. And then one thing I cannot stand, and it's honestly on LinkedIn all the time. You'll see a post like top 30 ways to get a new job, some random thing. It's so written by AI. And then you see 17 other people on LinkedIn, the same exact. Did we not even judge the copy up a little bit and like add some flavor? It's just a rip from AI. And then all these other people have the same thing. It makes me then look at that person as, I can't trust you as a value source of information. Not that AI isn't necessarily pulling
Yeah.
and culling all this valuable info. It's like you're just giving me regurgitated Google. Like, so what?
I like it for kind of like fact checking or data or just like
Like an aggregator of
an
stuff.
aggregator of, yeah, because which is really honestly what it's best at. Just like, I'd agree. I don't mind using it for like hashtags or descript. Sometimes for like a description, if I'm just like, I just need like a simple thing that is going to help me with, you know, the algorithm or whatever. Because like there's tools for, especially for like YouTube, there's tools you can use to help integrate into your platform. Be like, hey, rewrite this for the algorithm or whatever, like, and it'll score you, you know, because all those things are important. So there's like, that's a way of like, you have great content, but you can't penetrate the algorithm because you didn't write the right title. That's just not fair.
Oh yeah. You're like, the content was a waste. Hours were wasted.
This is really good. I want people to see it. Yeah. And I agree with you very much. Like, we'll have to see what happens, but I would assume, I kind of think about AI like every other piece of technology that puts the tools in the hands of creatives and not technicians. So like with web, there was a time when web was designed and it was just blue pages with white text, or white pages with blue text, or black with white. You know what I mean? It was just like coded by someone in HTML. I'm like, put it up. Yeah, creatives couldn't do stuff on the web. And then, you know, all of a sudden, WYSIWYGs are there, and then you can like, you know, you can design, and you can do WordPress, and then you can do Squarespace. And now, so it's like there's like this progression that happens where not everyone had a website, and then not everyone had, then everyone had to have a website because it was easier to develop and creatives had access to it. And then it gets to the point that not only creatives can do it, but entrepreneurs can do it. And now business people don't even need creatives. They can just go do Squarespace, or they can do some other tool that lets them just like spin up a site and start a brand, or, you know, whatever, go over to Fiverr and hire somebody for cheap to like do their logo. They don't have to do this whole process, right? So, and it's kind of a similar thing, because all it's doing is just like raising the water of like what you can do without what you have access to do on your own. And all AI is going to do is like make that the standard. So when everyone is able to do that, really good content is going to require us to do even more and do better, to take what's there. Because if AI is the ground, you're writing content with AI as the ground floor, creating videos with AI as the ground floor, doing graphic design with AI, whatever that is, it's all going to look the same. Everyone's doing it. It's all going to look the same. So what are we going to do different? So that's really going to be, how can we use it to do something different? So, because then if it all looks the same, no one's going to engage with it, because it's like, this is all.
I do feel like the high technical expertise that our people have, or people in the space have, will differentiate. Because that's one thing, like, yeah, anyone can build a website now, theoretically, but does your website have good back-end information that people can search you and find you? And that's what I think is going to be different. It's like, having the right mix. Like, yeah, you can use AI for like audio, but does it like actually sound terrible and not as good as someone who mixed it themselves?
Yeah, no, that's true. No, the audio tools for AI
it is really interesting,
pretty amazing. But that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, it's limiting it's removing the technical barrier.
Yeah.
There used to be a time when it's like, oh, to get good audio, you had to have the right mics, you had to have a quiet room, you had to have a good technician, you had to have good mixing. Well, now if you get bad audio, you can run it through an AI tool and it'll recreate it, it'll fix it, it'll remove whatever's there. And so now everyone can have good audio.
I wish I had that in college.
Oh my gosh.
So
it's a lifesaver. You know, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, then, okay, so now if we've removed audio as the barrier to creating good video content, well, what do you have to have? You have to actually have good video content. You have to have a good story. You have to have all these other things in there. It's not just like, yeah, okay, we can all have good audio. So I don't know. I think it's going to be very helpful. I still think in order to apply it well, you know, I don't think we'll be out of our job.
Yeah.
There's aspects of what we do that will be made simpler. And I think for agencies like us, we'll be asked to do more to higher scale, but probably not spend as much time toiling on this minutia of things, because AI will help us solve those problems faster.
True.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking. All right, cool. Well, I think that's probably it, unless you have any other parting thoughts on social media.
Parting thoughts. Like and follow us on all social platforms.
Social first. Social first.
Also YouTube. Well,
do we need t-shirts to say social first?
It's so tough because I feel like everyone has their opinion on like email, web, the ads, paid, all the stuff. But I do think if you like kill it with social, the rest can fall into place.
Yeah. Is that how you would say it? Would you say social first? Would you put it on a t-shirt?
Social first? ? Yes.
Social first? All right, cool. Well, you've heard it here. Social first. Thanks so much for coming on today's episode.
It was nice getting out from behind the camera, even though I think I prefer to be behind the
Katie's
camera.
normally behind the camera telling us what we've done correct and incorrect, but today you're here. But it's fine because you were a broadcaster.
At another time, in another life.
Yeah, in another life. Katie Gillen.
Reporting live.
News. ESPN Sports. All right. Well, hope everyone enjoyed this. And as always, if you like this and you want to see more content like this, go check us out on YouTube or listen to this wherever it's streaming. And we'll see you next time.